All right, on this video we're going to go ahead and do a competition rib trim. And I can tell you right now, if you can see this rack of ribs here, it's much thicker than this one. So already I know this this rack definitely would not make the cut for a competition. You definitely want to go with something a lot meatier, but if we want to get really good at this and trimming and prepping meat, we got to practice. So the first thing is I've got some paper towels laid out. We're going to take the membrane off, but in competition, instead of doing a whole rack of ribs, a lot of the competitors now are trimming it down to about 8 bones, and then they're focusing on the middle 4. And so they're trying to get a good 4 ribs out of each rack. And so some teams are cooking around 2 to 3 racks, maybe 2 to 4 even. So the first thing we definitely want to do is we're going to take this rib tip off, and definitely don't throw away your rib tips. You definitely want to keep those. And let's see, and let me see if I can turn this. Let's do this way. So what we want to do to trim the rib tips is usually you want to go in 4 bones, and the 4th bone on average is usually about the longest bone. I can tell you right now, definitely, really I can definitely use this edge as my guide right here. So if you want to come in, so these are short, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's about right. I want to come in and I want to trim that off, and then I'm going to take off the thinner ends right here. This one, even though it's thicker and looks meatier, I'll probably trim some of these bones off as well, and then we'll start cleaning some of this fat off. So let's go ahead and we're just going to make a nice little slit like that. We don't have to get too fancy. We can always clean it up. And I'm telling you, you definitely want to keep your rib tips. Really good in baked beans, really good for a snack when you're cooking. You can overcook them. On the smoker, get them super tender. Okay. So let's start trimming some of this fat here. I'm not going to worry about actually taking that off yet, because I'm gonna trim this down here. But I'm just kind of just want to size this up, and then we'll end up pulling the membrane. One thing we can definitely go ahead and do is take off this flap right here. One of the things I look for is obviously the marbling on the front, but when you buy these ribs that are in a pack, sometimes you can't see the back of them. If you can see the back, so you can see, this is, to me, looks like a well marbled rib. So this flap can definitely come off. If I can get to it, it's like any other trim. If you can get to it, great. If you can't, I don't want to gouge this. So let's see here. I think we take that off, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm looking at maybe taking and I'm not going to throw that away. This will be a good backyard rib. Might even take a little bit more of that off. So I've got 8 bones. So ideally when you cook these, you're going to cut each end off. You're going to want to sample it. And you want to also bunch these up and keep them nice and thick. But you're going to focus on the middle ones right here. Of course, this one wouldn't make the cut, but this one definitely looks good. I think for a competition, the ribs that I saw win, they were cooked, they just to perfection. When the judge bites, it's supposed to have a nice clean bite mark. I feel like the ribs are a very competitive category. There's a lot of teams cooking ribs that are just on point. So you're definitely going to want a good game plan. What do you want to cook it on? Are you going to cook it on a pit barrel? You're going to cook it on a Weber? And most teams are doing kind of like they put 4 or 5 bones on the bottom of the box and then 4 or 5 more on top. It seems like judges like a bigger box. Again, all you need is at least 6. Another little trick I've learned is, so prior to cooking these, you can come in here and you just want to press this meat right down here on each bone, because as that renders down, this meat will pull back and you'll have a nice clean, it's mainly for appearance. One of the ways to look, if you kind of went old school low and slow, is you would look for this meat to pull back, and if it's pulling back and exposing the bone, it's definitely getting tender. Got just a hard piece of cartilage right there. I'm not going to try to gouge into there and get that, so. All right. Probably trim a little bit more of that up, but I'm not worried about it. Okay. Let's see if we can get this off. I like to start on an edge somewhere, and I just like to go old-fashioned and use a paper towel. I'll leave a little bit of it, that's okay. Now you can brine or not brine, but you can marinate these, you can inject. All I'm going to do is when I get ready to cook these, I'm going to put a little oil in the back and the front, set my rub, and for ribs and pork and brisket, I usually let it set for an hour for that rub to really set in. But it looks like a small rack of ribs, but in competition, most teams are going hot and fast. If you cook these around 275, 300, you should have these done in like 3 hours. 2.5, 3 hours. Some are even cooking a lot faster than that. A lot easier than trimming chicken. Okay. So let's see, turn it this way. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm actually about at the 5th rib. And again, I'm going to use that because of the angle they cut that. You don't have to do it in one fell swoop. You can always go back and touch it up. Again, don't throw your rib tips away. Okay, so let's flip this around. And if we leave 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I want to keep it right in here because that is thick. And the way I really should almost be trimming these is bone side up. Okay, so let's look at this again. Two, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So I really like the shape of that one. That one looks good. Just got some minor cleanup to do again. If I can pull some of that fat off, just be careful. You don't want to gouge it. Just get what you can. I try to keep ribs as simple as I can. A lot of people like to spritz. I feel like that can affect the bark. I mean, for backyard cooking, you know, I like to do that. I like to inject them. But competition, if I can take a step out and just set that bark and not have to worry about, just let the process take place. So we'll get any of this loose meat. I'm going to leave that. I just don't want to gouge it. And then let's see if we can get that membrane off. May not have any luck getting it off. Almost looks like it was taken off. You got all this fat exposed to it. Yeah, because you don't want to, that part you don't want to take off, but for this I'm not going to worry about it. Yep. Okay. Well, that makes that a lot easier. Yeah, be careful. Some people, you know, when I first started learning how to trim ribs, I would think you had to get that part off, but no, it's that superficial part. It's not this. That's really not it. It's almost like it came off during the trim process, but you know, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to try to trim this. I don't want to gouge my ribs. I don't want to cut through there. If your temperature in your pit gets away, you can have what they call it a blowout. So the rib actually pops out. And unfortunately, if that happens, most likely the meat, when the judge bites through it, will pull off. And of course, you'll get dinged for that because the meat completely pulls off the bone. Then to the judge, that was overcooked. So that saves me that step. And then I'm just going to come through here. I'm going to press that meat on the bone. I'm going to get it loosened up. Again, that's just strictly for appearance. Woo! So I'm just going along those edges and I'm just getting that meat loosened up and just pressing all along there. And then when I season them, I put them on a rack and I get ready to cook. You know, the other fun little trick you want to do is you want to bunch them up so they cook like that. I used to hang them in the barrel, but they would stretch. So if you cook them like that, they'll cook nice and hopefully stay nice and thick in there. Of course, well, this is what you got to watch for is those little cartilage right here. So sometimes you'll get those pieces right there. So I'm gonna have to watch for that. I really don't want to cut all the way through there, because I don't want my, at least this end, looking funny. But you know, the ribs I'm going to look at is going to be right here anyway, these 4 bones. So, all right. I mean, that was pretty simple. I mean, you want a thick meaty rib, trim it down to around 8 bones. You're going to focus on the middle 4. The end pieces, when you know, it's going to be your test ribs, so you're going to pull those out, and you know, you're going to bite through those. You're going to see how clean the bite is. And then during the cooking process and the boxing, I'll kind of show you what the judge is looking at and kind of what a lot of teams are turning in. Again, you know, the sauce, the glaze, the nice shiny ribs. You know, hopefully we'll have these done in, you know, 2.5, 3 hour process. I'm going to cook these on the pit barrel, and you know, hopefully they turn out real good. It's been a long time since I've done ribs, and I will say, in the competition, one competition I did judge, I out of the 6 teams, I'd say, that came through the table that I was on, I'd say, I mean, 4 out of the 6 on my table were extremely competitive. A lot of 9s were given as far as the tenderness, appearance, and the taste. I would say most teams did well with just a really well-balanced flavor, sweet, and again, I tend to lean away from spicy, because if you have one little rub or sauce that just may kind of kick a you know, taste bud up, you kind of get hit for that, especially if it lights the judge. If it's just a light, you know, heat, well balanced, but you know, again, everybody's taste buds are different, so I tend to lean a little bit more towards the sweeter, you know, saltier, you know, kind of rubs like that. So next time, the next video, so video 2, will be just the cooking process, and we'll go through that. Thanks for watching.